This forecast is going to make a lot of people angry, but just remember, folks, I'm only the messenger and I will have a better forecast to deliver to you, hopefully in the not too distant future. But yeah, we've got severe weather to talk about again. The tropics may be turning a corner. There's some things to watch there, but the big story for the next 7 days is going to be the brutal heat wave that is setting up for the nation's midsection and parts of the South. When it's all said and done, in fact, we may remember this as the weather highlight of the summer, and we're going to get into that here in just a minute. We've got to start, though, with the most pressing issue of the day. That is severe weather. We're going to take a look at that right now. Yeah, folks, big heat is in store for many locations over the next 5 to 7 days. Talking temperatures in the 100s with heat indices approaching 115. This tropical air mass that we've been under the influence of forever is going to stay in place with the exception of the Great Lakes and Northeast and maybe get down into the Mid-Atlantic and upper Southeast for a few days. That's going to rapidly turn around, and tropical air is going to flow back into those areas too as we get on into the week. But out here in the plains in the south, it's not going anywhere. We may see a diminishment toward the western plains as we get on through the week, but still it's going to be hot and brutal. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but that tropical air mass gives rise to instability, which gives rise to afternoon showers and thunderstorms. And if you have mid-level energy like we do in the flow, you're going to see severe weather. And we've got 3 such areas today where we're really targeting for severe weather. Up here in the central plains from Bismarck down to Aberdeen and Pierre, South Dakota, over here in the Ohio Valley from Springfield, Illinois to Indianapolis, over to Louisville, Cincinnati, and then up into Scranton and Binghamton, Albany, places like New York City, Boston, Springfield, Massachusetts, Portland, Maine, under the gun for potential tornadoes, high winds, and hail later today. Tornadoes a threat in all of these areas where we've got a little bit of a boundary. We'll see supercells develop initially and track along those boundaries. Then outflow from convection will begin to coalesce thunderstorm development into clusters, enhancing the wind threat. Wind is a possibility in all of those areas as well. Hail is the biggest area that or the biggest concern out in the central plains, where it's a little bit cooler with height. We saw some big hail out here yesterday in Nebraska. 2 to 4 inch hailstones fell out here. Kansas won, I believe it was Kansas that had, Logan, Kansas maybe, that had 97 mile per hour wind gusts. So some severe weather out here yesterday, more expected today. And then tomorrow, just a marginal threat right now. I imagine some of these areas will be upgraded to a slight risk. But again, out here in the central plains, Dakotas, Nebraska, eastern Montana, and then down in the southeast, southern Kentucky, eastern Tennessee, and most of the Carolinas, northern Georgia, we could see enhanced level of severe weather down here compared to the rest of this little light green area where we just expect scattered showers and thunderstorms. Tornadoes a threat here, mostly in South Dakota. Wind and hail pretty much up here in the northern plains, and just wind down in the southeast tomorrow as line segments and clusters begin to merge together and take over there. Now look here. Also, in conjunction, as we've seen with this tropical air mass over the course of the last week, flooding is a threat, and we're going to see these thunderstorms drop torrential amounts of rain, 2 to 4 inch per hour rainfall rates. Up here in central Illinois, we're looking for, near Springfield, we're looking for a moderate risk. So we could see several inches of rain fall very quickly with training thunderstorms here. Do not drive through flooded roadways, folks. You know the drill on that. But anywhere from eastern Iowa, northern Missouri, all the way back in toward the Appalachians here in West Virginia to western North Carolina, pay attention for flooding rains this afternoon with the rainfall piling up very, very quickly. We had 1.5 inches of rain in the house yesterday in about 45 minutes. It was tropical. It was a lot of rain coming out of that quickly. The alerts map this afternoon, flash flood watches up for that flood threat through the Ohio Valley here. Extreme heat warnings up for many days this week here in southern Missouri and eastern Kansas, stretching down into northern Arkansas around Jonesboro, and then over here in Union City, Tennessee, and just the southwest tip of Kentucky. It's going to be very hot. Heat indices over 100 for an extended period of time. Many heat advisories around that, including this afternoon here in the southeast for many areas. Red flag warnings up here in Colorado and Idaho, or that's actually Wyoming, sorry, in southern Idaho, so don't burn anything up there. And then air quality again for smoke in northern Minnesota. You've been dealing with that for a long, long time. There's your surface map boundary, frontal, sort of a stationary frontal boundary extending from Idaho up here into the Dakotas, back through the Central Plains and southern Great Lakes into New England, where we've got a little area of low pressure enhancing some spin in the atmosphere, bringing a little wind energy. So that's responsible for these severe weather threats, at least the one over here in New England. And then you've got the flooding threat here, but anywhere in the green, you can see scattered showers, thunderstorms this afternoon. Putting the radar into motion, we've got rain out there in South Dakota this morning, and then another batch of rain and thunder working through Illinois and Indiana. That's going to move on off to the east and dissipate a little bit. But as we get on out here toward 2 o'clock, look at this, a line of thunderstorms from Maine all the way back through New Hampshire and Vermont into northern New York. Scattered storms developing other areas. You'll start to see as we put this on into motion mid-afternoon, that line propagates, getting off the coast now in the Maine and the northeast areas, but look for a wind threat with that. Scattered thunderstorms developing in our secondary threat area here through the Ohio Valley and southern Great Lakes. Scattered thunderstorms across the southeast into Florida, front range of the Rockies down here in the Four Corners region, and then starting to see that little area of convection working through South Dakota, laying down a boundary, and we're going to see that persist in the afternoon and see thunderstorms track along that as we get through the afternoon. As we push on into the evening hours, wind threat emerging here in the Ohio Valley, and still see a little bit of thunderstorm activity through Massachusetts, but we're really watching the plains here in eastern Montana into North Dakota, starting to see thunderstorms fire along. You see those supercells popping up. Still got activity going in here through the early evening hours in Illinois, so watch out for wind in those areas. Central Illinois down through the I-70 corridor, looking for showers and thunderstorms through the evening. That'll dissipate in those areas, but look what's going on in the Dakotas. We're seeing a MCS, a organized area of convection form, turn into, looks like a little MCV, a little vortex coming out of this, spinning up a bow echo, maybe traversing Minnesota. I talked about this yesterday, and it wouldn't surprise me to see a slight risk sort of extended in that area as we go through the overnight areas, that's going to hold together and then dissipate finally as we get into tomorrow afternoon. Look at scattered thunderstorms developing down here in the southern Appalachians, and that little area pushes on into the Great Lakes. We see more big thunderstorms developing in eastern Montana, and as a new portion of a trough that's working in, kind of dampening out, but still enough energy to kick off some supercells up here and into the plains as well. We're going to see those hold together. A few thunderstorms working in overnight into Minnesota there. So that's the forecast for severe weather. We're going to look at the tropics here as well, but before we do that, we're going to check in on that heat wave because it's going to get brutal, folks, and then we're going to wrap up with the tropical update. If you like heat, you are in the right place because it's coming, and it's coming hard, and it's coming fast, and it's going to stick around for a good long time. Flow is what drives the weather, the flow in the upper atmosphere. And look at this. What we've got here is a sprawling ridge of high pressure down here across the southern portion of the country. Part of the reason why we're not seeing as much rain down here because of this big upper ridge, but the flow pattern goes from west to east, and you'll see little dips and flows and little pieces of wind energy come through. That's these green colors. Those are what are responsible for helping to organize showers and thunderstorms and make them more of a severe threat. But as we go on out through the week, we're here at Sunday, we get on out and look at this big trough in the northeast, gonna make it feel like fall for a lot of you up in the northeast. Get on into Monday and Tuesday. It's going to send a backdoor front south down the Appalachians, folks, even as far as North Carolina, getting in on some of those lower dew points. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully we can get a day or two out of that. But look at this big ridge building out here in the center of the country. When you see a big ridge signal like that, you need to be thinking hot, 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 especially in the summertime, because that's what's coming. That big ridge centers itself right over the Midwest and Southern Plains. It sort of oscillates back and forth. See it kind of poking into the Great Lakes now, sending that front back up into New England as a warm front. And look at this. We get on out toward the end of the week. It just sort of maintains. You got a big nationwide continental ridge with a couple of centers here, one here and one here into the Four Corners region. It's getting warmer in the north as we go on out in time, but really warm across the Central Plains. And occasionally you'll see these little pieces of energy poke in here, maybe enhancing a severe threat. I'd look for severe weather across the northern plains pretty much all week in that area. Pay attention up there as we go through the week. I'll keep you posted, so stay tuned, stay subscribed here, and we'll make sure that you stay alert to that. But as we go on out to the end of the week, look at this big ridge right where we started, but just the ridge is bigger and the flow is now pushed way up into Canada, so we may see things quiet down as we get on out toward next weekend, at least in terms of severe weather. But we'll keep you posted on that. Here, look at this. This is the tropical air mass. Big bright red colors, even purples, extreme precipitable water values. Look what happens though in the Northeast. This is just going to stay around here in the mid-south and south. But look at the Northeast, big dry punch of air with that trough pushing in as we get on into Tuesday and Wednesday. A lot of that moist air gets shunted down to the south. But look here in the plains, big plume of moisture all the way up into Canada. And with that heat building, it's going to feel nasty in those areas. It just sort of pivots around like a wave breaking over top of this as we go on out in time. And look at that, it'll fill back into the mid-Atlantic Northeast, big plume of tropical moisture. Around this ridge, when you've got these big ridges set up like this, you're getting flow that works just around this in a clockwise fashion, and all of these storm systems are going to come out here. They're going to merge off the Atlantic. They're going to rotate back around in the Gulf, and you're not going to see a lot of new, just big west to east activity. You get a big circulation around these ridges, and it keeps the air hot and stale and tropical. And look at that, just surges back in again over time. That's what we're seeing out here with the general flow pattern, and that's going to have tropical implications. So stay tuned for that. We're going to get into that in a minute. Here's a better way to look at it. We see it over time, Monday, Tuesday, big orange colors means big heat, a little bit cooler out here in the west. Over time, ridge is going to shift back, but over the course of the next week and the next weekend, it's just going to be centered up here. The highest anomalies relative to normal are going to be over the Great Lakes, but you're going to see big heat. This is a big heat signal, and here are your temperatures as we go through the week. Monday highs in the hundreds up here into Nebraska, back into Texas, with hundreds potentially in the southeast. It's going to feel nasty and muggy, but look at this. Monday is 60s up here, transitioning to 70s on Tuesday in New England, 70s down here potentially. I'm not necessarily going to go for 70s for highs, but I might say around 80 or so in the upper southeast. But look at the heat surge here in the central plains, a little bit less hot than it's been, a little milder maybe out here in the northwest, but these hundreds, 105 getting up in here in central Nebraska, hundreds all the way up and down. This is highs for Wednesday, 100, 104 in Nebraska, hundreds all the way through the plains. Going to be very hot and muggy as well, warming up everywhere in the Northeast, Great Lakes, in the Southeast too. Look at that, everything looks like concrete, folks. 105 in Dallas, getting very hot, staying hot, heat not going anywhere, heat building up into central Canada, up and down the East Coast. It is going to be a hot week, and where there's humidity, and there's going to be a lot of that in the east, it's going to be very just oppressively hot, folks. So stay inside as much as you can, and make sure that you have plenty of fluids if you're working outside, because heat is a cumulative effect. Take caution this week in the center and eastern portion of the country, particularly the southeast. There is your tropical threat. This has been downgraded to a 10% chance. It was 30, then it was 20, now it's 10. Not a lot looking to happen here. Tropical cyclones like moist air, they like calm air, they like warm ocean waters. Got plenty of warm ocean waters toward the Atlantic over here. As you go from basically east to west, the water temperatures get warmer and more favorable, but unfortunately shear out in front of this thing is going to kill it, even if it does become any, something. Got a lot of shear over here. If you take a look at the radar, there it is. Look at that big tropical, looks like a big tropical blob out here. That's our area of interest. Unfortunately, big broad circulation. If you're expecting tropical development, you don't want that. You want things tightening up, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But here's what we've got. Wave train coming off of Africa all the way across like this. This is where the air is moist. This is water vapor, by the way. Up here is where the air is dry. You do not want to see tropical cyclones get into that air. That will kill it, and unfortunately, the way the upper air pattern is going to be over the next few days, we're going to see a corridor for cyclones that come off of Africa to make it up into there. We don't expect anything. The Caribbean's kind of dry down here too. Got a big spin up here, but this is nothing to worry about. This is just creating a shear environment out here in the Atlantic. And there is your big Atlantic view. Got a big trough up here, another trough working into the northeast, and here's a big sprawling ridge of high pressure out here. Look at this. Kind of got a weakness here, back here off the coast of Africa, and another weakness back in here a little bit. And watch what happens as we go on out in time with this. That big sprawling area of high pressure turns into a small area over here in the western Atlantic, and then over in the eastern Atlantic you've got a low pressure system developing that's going to increase shear and allow an escape route for anything moving off of Africa to go this way and get into the dry air. So not looking for a lot of development out here in the MDR. Closer to home, The European ensembles now have a 30% chance, roughly, of development off the southeast coast. And the reason for that is what I showed you before. You've got systems kind of working along here, coming off the southeast coast, getting trapped under that ridge, moving back into the Gulf. So anywhere in the southeast coast area in the Gulf, look for tropical development over the next 7 days. We could see some activity there. I don't expect that it would be anything that develops into a tropical storm, strong tropical storm or hurricane to bring a lot of wind threat, but I would expect with the tropical air mass in place, lots of areas along the southeast coast, these beaches here in North and South Carolina, Georgia, and then northern Florida, other into the Gulf, probably these areas here in the coastal regions, probably going to see quite a bit of rainfall over the next 7 days with these systems coming in, rotating back under that ridge. As a matter of fact, the GFS shows that pretty good here. Look at this. We're going out through Monday into Tuesday, and you start to see plenty of tropical activity down here in terms of tropical moisture. Big blob kind of circulates through Georgia and Florida back into the Gulf. There it comes, Louisiana. You've had plenty of rain. More rain's coming as we get on into next week. There's Thursday, there's Friday, there's next weekend, more rain. Little systems working out into the southeast and just bringing plenty of rain through here in the northwest flow as that ridge migrates back to the west. We looked at this yesterday in detail. You see those systems kind of darting down from the Great Lakes to the southeast, and any of those systems that get trapped off the coast, watch for development. That's your forecast for today, folks. That's what we've got going on. No real changes to the long range thinking that we saw yesterday. As far as space weather goes, coronal hole is turning toward us. We're going to expect enhanced solar wind from that, and so we'll watch for geomagnetic conditions. If I see any aurora potential, I'll let you know. Any earthquake and volcano issues, I'll let you know those too. We'll have a full episode of Cold Range Weather World tomorrow, but that's your weather forecast for Sunday. Hope you have a wonderful day, and hopefully I have a better weather forecast to deliver to you soon. In the meantime, have a blessed afternoon. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with friends and family, and that's all for today. Leave me a prayer request. Pray for you every day. Take care, folks.